Good day to all our listeners. Today we're here with Matt Stow, freediver, spearfisher, safety diver, and many more. How are you doing today? Today we're here with Matt Stow. Lovely to have you today in the office. How are you doing today?
Very good. I'm really cold. This is middle of winter in Cape Town, and must say I'm trying to get quite acclimatized to it, and it's taking its toll. It's interesting.
Nothing all like good, weather.
Yeah.
Love it. Okay, let's start with question 1. Matt Stow, what drew you to the world of freediving?
I think it was a natural evolution and a love for the water. I think from a very young age, I've been a complete water baby. I always tell some of my students a very interesting story that when I was younger, I'm talking like tiny, sort of 6 months old. When I was born, then my parents were a bit too kind of snip, as they say in the Afrikaans word, to put a pool fence around the pool. And they decided to teach me to swim first. So bang went off Matt to swimming lessons at the age of 6 months. And by 16 to 17 months, I could dive a teaspoon out of a pool. So take that and you extrapolate that down the length of my life. And I really haven't moved away from water much. And it's been surfing and freediving and spearfishing and various other things. And slowly the evolution of freediving came in, through the water use. I love to hunt fish, obviously. It's a great sustainable way of providing good protein. But, you jump out in the water and you've got a family to come home to. And it's not we need to know what we're doing. So I decided to start doing courses. And that's where the freediving essentially came in. I wanted to do it safely. And in doing so, I enrolled with my first course with Hunley, Prinsloo, just a very basic introductory course where we did some breath hold and some dives. And then moved on to Trevor Hutton's very extensive course that we ended up being a master sea master freediver. It was supposed to be a sort of a couple of 2 months internship, turned I think into about 2 years worth of internship, which was amazing because Trevor had so much good value and information to learn. He provided so much value and information. And it was just a quest to be safer in the water. Freediving is the natural progression because it's so beautifully broken down into its very beautiful simplicity of it. It's a breath hold underwater. And if we can understand how to do that safely, we can do it better and we can do any other activity in the water better. So it really applies for a lot of other things. So pretty much jumping into the water for most of my life, finding that evolution and following a really, really cool path to bring me to where I am today.
I love that. You're very much a very well-known freediving instructor. I always get asked this question from a lot of my friends. So I'd like to ask it to you, what is spearfishing? And then also, how do you control your fear when you're underneath the water? Because people always say, Adrian, how do you go down? And then what do you tell yourself in the water? So, what are one of the things when you're spearfishing and you're sitting at a deep depths waiting for fish? Like, what do you tell yourself to calm yourself down when you're at the bottom?
Okay, so initially when I first started spearfishing, I had a fear of open water, believe it or not. And a very, very good dear friend of mine, Craig Tor, took me out to Arniston and threw me in the water nicely. It wasn't horrible about it, but put me into deep water. And I overcame that fear. And it is a very justifiable fear being in open water. There's lots of different variables that come in there. There's fear of sharks. There's fear of open water. What happens if I sink too deep? What happens if I stay down too long? What happens if I'm too heavily weighted? And, the list continues. But I think the trick is to be relaxed. Know what you're doing. Be good at what you're doing. Know your limits. Don't stay down too long. Understand that I have a beautiful phrase that I utilize or use when people ask me hey, Matt, aren't you scared of sharks and jumping into the water and there's sharks? And I just look at them and I go, I take my finger and I dip it in a glass of water. And I said, if this water's salty, there's definitely sharks in it. So just accept that fact. And if you can accept that fact and enjoy diving in their space and we realize that they're not threats to us, that we all just need to get along and be respectful, the fear starts subsiding. We still, to reinforce, we need to be very, very respectful of their territory. But, that fear, that core fear starts really drifting away a bit, and you rely on your actual skills and being safe in the water.
Love it. What are your biggest learnings from being an instructor for aspiring freediving instructors?
Biggest learnings? Okay, so I became a freediving instructor, if I just look at it from the outside, essentially, so that I could train up people to dive safely, and training up other instructors as an instructor trainer as well. When we instill as much knowledge as we can to the different instructors or the students, we facilitate a toolbox of information and skills and techniques that they can fall upon if they're having any issues in the water, and also to make their time in the water a lot more pleasurable and enjoyable. If you could jump into the water and you're not sure of how your body works and how the equalization works and where you're diving and who's your buddy and all these other different aspects and what happens to your body underwater. The idea is to try and relay as much information as an instructor to the student or other instructor that's going to be teaching people, so that they have a good, solid, fundamental baseline of information so that they can dive themselves in a far more relaxed and enjoyable way, resulting in a far safer person or freediver in the water. There's something to be said by understanding, for instance, how a car works before you jump in and start driving it around. Our bodies are amazing things, and if you can understand how this vessel works, you can utilize it far easier. And really, it's just about giving as much good, valuable, relevant information to the students and instructors so that they can utilize that information themselves. The instructors can teach those valuable skills and techniques onto other students and enrich the people around them, and make, once again, you'll see it's a bit of a repetition, but making sure everyone is safe in the water.
So safety first and always understanding the sport around us. All right, that's good. And you're very much involved within freediving in the sport of South Africa, very much always in between South Africa and Egypt. Could you tell us a bit of what you do when you're there in Egypt all the time, when you're in between South Africa and Egypt? And then how would you like to see freediving, the sport, and freediving as play grow in South Africa and Egypt?
Okay, that's a really cool question. I seem to disappear quite extensively to Egypt. It started early last year, where I had an opportunity to work at Freediving World in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt, as a safety freediver under the curatorship of Andrea Zuccari. I must have probably about 5 books in the training facility here that's been written by him. He was a phenomenal person, a diver. His knowledge was out of this world. He was super well respected. So I got the opportunity to work at Freediving World in Sharm el-Sheikh at I think it was the July competition. I flew directly in and jumped onto the platform. I think I jumped off the plane straight out to the platform on the last training day, met the crew, and yeah, it was pretty much, that's where it started, and it hasn't ended. So typically what happens is they will have a competition, say 3 times a year. I think there's a May, there's a July, and there's an August-September competition. There are other competitions that I have been involved in, and that is the Dahab Open at the Blue Hole in Dahab. And, to give you a bit of a background, maybe let's talk about sort of a typical day. I think that would give a good kind of holistic viewpoint as to what would be the day's activities. But it starts the night before, prepping, getting everything organized, making sure that we have good night's rest. We're in the water for a long time. I'll go into detail in a moment. But making sure you get a good night's rest, we would probably stay, like if we're in Sharm el-Sheikh, we'll stay at one of the accommodations, which is about 10 kilometers away. So we get up really early in the morning, make sure that we are sufficiently protein positive. So it's always starts with a cup of coffee, otherwise I'll be miserable as all hell. Magnesium tablets, we will put on eggs and mayonnaise on crackers. We will normally shovel about 3 or 4 eggs down, and that's before 6 o'clock. Then our taxi comes and fetches us, takes us down to Sharm el-Sheikh Freediving World. We arrive at the center. It's normally a nice bit of a greet. There's a good atmosphere, a bit of cleaning up that we do. So there's a bit of manual labor, busy doing, the general day-to-day things, sweeping up, putting all the wetsuits out, getting the gear ready, making sure all the stuff is ready for the platform, because we swim everything out to the platform. When I say everything, it's all the hard, expensive gear. So we make sure that everything's ready. If it's summertime, you don't want to get into your wetsuit too early, because I think on the last trip now that I've come back from, we got there in the morning. It was about between 42 and 45 degrees. It's about 8:30 in the morning. So yeah, we put everything in the water. We take it down to the pier, take all the camera kit, all the scooters, all the dry zones. There's quite a lot of equipment that needs to be carried up and down the stairs. And then you kind of leave your wetsuit donning for absolute last, unless you're sneaky like me and you go take some stuff down, then jump in the water and just get a bit acclimatized and have a moment with yourself before the day starts, because it can be quite a long day, as I mentioned. Yeah, so we get all the equipment down, put on our wetsuits, the team meets at the bottom, we swim all this equipment out to the platform, which is about 300 or 250 meters, 300 meters out to sea. Andrea designed the most amazing platform for the competition. And then we spend the next hour setting everything up, setting up all the dry zones, dropping the line, setting the counterbalance system. 15 minutes before we drop the main line with the cameras, we all assign different duties. So there will be a range of different duties. We may be assigned to a warm-up line where the athletes need to warm up. We may be assigned to oxygen duty, which is deco oxygen, where we have a 5-meter, 100% oxygen station where the athletes can breathe for 5 minutes at 5 meters, no deeper, no longer. So you can be assigned to that. One of our safeties can be assigned to either safety number 1, 2, and 3, and I'll go into detail as to how that works. Safety number 1 is the deeper safety, normally the scooter safety for the deeper dives, and they will be diving between 40 and 45 meters on the scooter, depending on the dive and the risk analysis on the actual dive. Safety number 2 would also dive down. They would do a between 30, 32 meter dive, depending. So they would all obviously be diving at certain times according to how the divers that's competing, his actual dive time. And there's a whole calculation for that, and I'm not going to go into too much detail, but we basically dive when it's the correct time for us to meet them at the appropriate depth. So let's say if I was diving as safety number 1, I needed to dive to 40 meters. It would have taken me approximately 45 to 50 seconds to get down there. So I would leave approximately 55 seconds or a minute before on the descent. So then I need to add that as well on top of that. So I would leave about quite a substantial amount in advance. It's easier when you do the calculations on a 30-meter dive, because it's 30 seconds down, 30 seconds up, and a 10-second hang. So it's about 1 minute, 10 seconds. So, we all leave at different times, what I'm saying. And then diver number 3 would leave a little bit later, and they would do the sort of 20-meter safety. We all are given different roles. Diver number 1, safety number 1, the deep safety, would be in charge of acting if there is an underwater blackout. Diver number 2 would provide support on the way up. And when we get to the surface, diver number 2 or safety number 2 would provide take the mask or a nose clip off and provide rescue breaths while the safety number 1 is holding. And safety number 3 is there to hold the head. And it's really cool the way it all works. And we practice it quite repetitively. So we have the 3 safeties. And then we have somebody doing watch duty, and they would be bouncing between the athletes. We have 2 watches. They would swim the watch to the athlete that's on the warm-up line, make sure it's correctly fastened on the correct hand opposite the lanyard, and then take that same watch off when they are done with the performance, move it across to the timekeeper, which is normally at Sharm, it would be Brian Crossland, who is the medic as well. He would take the time, and then that watch needs to go to the next athlete. So there are quite a few different roles, within the safety group on a day. Everybody knows up front what they're doing. It runs like proper clockwork, and at the end of the day, we go through the however many athletes there are. If there's 48 athletes, it's quite a long day. If there's 28 or 32, it's a little bit shorter day. And then once we're done with the day, we pack everything up, pull up the lines, check the cameras, clean all the equipment off, spray off all the salt off the units. And this is specifically, like I said, to Sharm el-Sheikh. And then swim everything back, carry it all up the stairs, have yourself a nice hot shower, go jump in the pool. It's 38 degrees, which is way too hot. Wash your equipment, pack it all up, go home, get some rest, repeat. So that gives you a nice idea as to the day. I mean, on this last competition, we had a couple of changes on the safety team and we got rotated in and out. I think for my sins, done a very interesting dive in Dahab in front of one of the safeties, Ricardo, who came and joined us on the line in Dahab. I did a beautiful no-fins, I think it was to 50 meters. And he knew what I was doing, but I didn't realize I was doing the swim no-fins. So anyway, by doing this, I'd seemed to have cemented myself that I was a little bit stronger than they anticipated. So I got shoved onto scooter duty, which is the deep stuff, and which is pretty cool running the scoot up and down. When it gets to these 60 meter dives, you're doing your 30, 35 meter dives anyway, just without the scooter. So I got kind of upgraded slightly, which was great. I had the opportunity to work the scooter in this last one. And yeah, that's your typical kind of day. It's quite grueling. Once safety 1 and 2, so those are your 2 deeper divers, are finished their days, in the competition, they get moved over to oxygen. And we do a 5-minute, 5-meter decompression. And believe me, it is needed. I had one day, I think I did about 750 meters. Actually, Tamsin Signal, who was on safety 2, I think she was on about 600 and something meters. Repetitive 30, 35 meter dives. We got like 20 of them. It was quite grueling, and we had some couple of instances, but 600 meters, vertical meters down can accumulate in your system for nitrogen. So we need to off-gas all that. And 5 minutes at 5 meters with pure oxygen definitely removes some of those signs of decompression, sickness, and illness. So we go off and do that, have a little bit of a break from all the packing up at least, because ideally we're not supposed to be doing too much strenuous exercise after that. But inevitably, because we like helping out and doing what we do kind of end up pulling lines or do it. We just really have to be careful about how we do it. Yeah, and as I said, you go back, wash everything, pack everything, catch a taxi back, repeat the process, prep everything the night before, wake up, and off we go. And then there's 2 days on, 1 day off, unless there's a bit of a cancel. So yeah, it gives a nice bit of perspective as to how that all works. It was really cool when Gletwin Ribbage was there in July. He hit the incredible number of 100 meters on his constant weight dive. It was quite an experience to be in the water and be on safety when he was doing his dives in this competition, being a South African and obviously fellow South African, and knowing Gletwin. Yeah, he really had an amazing time. But to be as part of the safety crew when that record and that historical moment was broken, it was phenomenal, and super proud of that man. He's an incredible diver. And then I think recently we had Gina and Megan competing at the last competition I just got back from now. I think Gina's just arrived back. And they did some great PBs and some really good dives and solid dives. Got to accompany them up and down. And it was nice to have some South Africans in the water with them. Yeah, so that's the Sharm el-Sheikh. Dahab is slightly different. We ran a competition there early July through Dahab Apnea. And that was a slightly different setup where we were rotating duties. So one would be deep diver safety number 1 would become safety number 2. And then when you finished the next dive, safety number 2 will become safety number 3. So you didn't dive as intensely as we were in Sharm el-Sheikh. Remember, this is something that was inherited from Andreas Zuccari. This is the system that has been applied there. It's not 100% sort of either competition safety protocol, but that's the way Sharm el-Sheikh Freediving World does it. The typical system is a different system where we rotate safety divers, and I think it's far safer, given that we have very valid data on how the accumulative depth can be quite taxing on a person. So Dahab competition was really, really fun. I enjoyed working with the team there. The head of safety was Khalid, who's a phenomenal diver. He's the Egyptian record holder. And I hope he gets to listen to this because we were sitting in the car. We were privy to one of his previous competitions. I actually had my camera there and I took some amazing pictures of him, which was published in some of the publications. But he broke some of the national records, the Egyptian records. And, after the Dahab comp, we were chatting to one of the safeties in the car on the way back into Asla. And he's like, Khalid, he came into the competition scene and just broke all the records and was like, khalas, yalla, goodbye. I've broken all the records. Good luck. Goodbye. So it was really, really funny. So khalas, yalla, goodbye. But he really is a phenomenal diver. He was the head of safety. And we had some great dives. We worked a little bit of a shorter shift and a little bit of a shorter day, but it was a super, super cool competition to be part of. Yeah, there's been some pool competitions in Dahab as well. I think Tamsin has assisted with those. There's been a couple of IDA competitions. I didn't get to help any of the pool competitions, but I did, however, get to go and compete in the static competition recently. I don't know how many athletes there were from around the world. And that was directly after our safety duty at Sharm el-Sheikh. So I was completely finished. I think I took 3 days when we got back from Sharm el-Sheikh to Dahab. We off-gassed for about 3 days. And then I had the static competition. I had zero training, like nothing. I said to Tam, I need to be relaxed. I need to feel good. I have a craving for a burger. Dropped down to Tricycle Burger, had a massive burger on the rooftop the night before. And I said, I just want to be like content and happy. I don't want to be all too over-focused. I just want to go have a good competition and just enjoy it. Anyway, I had a good burger. Woke up that morning, felt good, did my warm-ups. They were amazing. I think my first contraction was 4:21 on my actual breath hold. And I did a 6:21 and happened to win the competition, which was quite surprising because there were some really amazing athletes that had been working really hard at it. One in particular, Aaron, who's way over more than capable for 7. I can see him doing 7.5. And it's astoundingly inspiring to watch him train. So I suspect that he will be taking the next competition. I think it was maybe a little bit of fluke that I took this one. But it was cool. It was nice to be on that side of things for a change.
Yeah.
And Dahab is an amazing community, freedivers, and it's that sense of community that probably keeps me going back. If we look at the diverseness of people and the experience levels of different people that are in that area. I mean, where else do you get to hang in the Olympic city of freediving and be a one-on-one friend with a lot of these people? So that would give you a typical background as to how the safety would work. As I've been working all these competitions with Tamsin Signer. She has done one more competition than me. She actually did the first one, was the May competition last year. And I must say a huge thank you because she put in a very good word for me so that I could come and join with the next July competition. So if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't actually got onto that team, I must admit. But then just on a side note, the center was run by Andrea Zuccuri. Tamsin did the first competition with him. I think she still holds the record from the deepest blackout rescue. On her first competition, she did a 30-meter rescue where the scooter missed one of the athletes, Jan from, I think, Germany. And she did a flawless 30-meter rescue of Jan Kutzenberg. I think it's Kutzenberg. And quite astounded everybody in the process. So she really needs a massive applause for being a solid freediver safety. And she's been doing it a bit longer than I have. So like I said, just a huge thanks for getting in the door there with Andrea. But just moving on to the August competition last year, Andrea actually passed away just after I finished the July competition on a very, very tragic scuba accident where they were busy tethering up one of the lines with the platform. And there was a horrible incident that unfortunately we lost Andrea Zuccuri, who, still kind of trying to fathom with that. I mean, that is a complete legend. But the center carries on and continues with Alicia, who was Andrea's partner. Alicia has continued the competition, so there's a legacy to continue, and also the Equalization Academy. But yeah, I had the privilege to have worked with Andrea. It was quite an experience. I have a very cool story about him. I mean, I'm a spearo, and that's my background. And spearos don't sometimes have the most amazing technique in duck diving. We bend, pull, kick, and the leg comes up and it flicks water. Now, Andrea was on the platform. They're busy monitoring the sonar, and I must have probably kicked water on my duck dive into his equipment maybe about 2 times before, when I came up after the dive, he looks at me, goes, "Matt, you kick water on my camera one more time, I'm going to break your legs." Anyhow, so I'm like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, Andrea. I'm so sorry." I'm like, here I'm thinking like, I've got all my diving techniques sorted, but very quietly and tail between the legs went across, and then that afternoon practiced some very quiet duck dives. And I'm like, "Tam, what am I doing wrong? What am I doing wrong?" And we refined my duck dive techniques. And every time I duck dive now in Sharm el Sheikh, I always dive with a mindset that please don't let me kick water in Andrea's camera kick, even though he's not there with us, but he's still with us. But yeah, it was a really cool story. He is an amazing, amazing, amazing person, and such a privilege to have learned from.
That's truly inspiring. It's like, as I'm listening and taking it all in, I'm just thinking as to how our safety freedivers are really guardian angels. The amount of preparation that goes through it, the amount of dives you guys do. I don't know if any of the listeners at home know, like, if any beginner like I am doing like 10 meter dives down and up tires you, being in the water for that long tires you, and to hear you guys doing 35s, 40s, 25s, and just going constantly with every free dive and just assuring that they're safe, doing all the preps pre and in the morning, doing them off in the afternoon, and then coming again for them the next day. That takes a tremendous amount of passion and hard work that you guys put in behind the scenes that a lot of us don't see. We just see a YouTube video clip and someone comes to the top, at the bottom, someone comes to the top, and then, you have the safeties being the celebrators right there for them, but we don't see what happens before and what happens after. And so that's really inspiring to hear what a day is like in the life of a safety, because that takes a lot. That takes a lot. And, I feel like almost as a free diver, if you're competing, you could almost say today, "I'm not feeling it. I don't want to compete. Let me take the day out." As a safety, that passion is so there that you guys, you almost feel like you don't want to take the day off because you want to be there for the divers. And so you guys show up for us every day. So all I'm thinking in my head is just like, wow, these guys are our guardian angels, So it's really nice to see the work that you're doing, Tamsin is doing, and all the other safety divers that are out there in Sharm and that are here in South Africa. It's really, really awesome.
Yeah, it is definitely a calling, I must admit. Financially, we get paid, obviously. We're professionals. Yeah, but sometimes the numbers don't quite add up. We're not pocketing huge amounts of cash. So it is definitely a calling. And it's something that I just absolutely freaking love doing. I mean, yes, we get to sometimes into the competition and be like, "Oh, this is the last competition I'm doing. That was hectic. I'm super tired." And then, pitch up at the next one, and you walk into the registration evening or the afternoon at the event, and you see all your familiar athletes and you greet them by name, and everybody, their backstory, and you just get this fuzzy feeling. I'm like, yeah, that was cool. And every athlete that you become close to and celebrate their wins with and their losses, you have these really amazing bonds with, and it's special. It is completely a calling. So yeah, I don't know. There's also something that I think became a partial coined phrase recently, and that is I was using it to describe something the other day, and it's diving on demand. We don't look at the water and the athlete going down and go, "Well, I don't feel like this today." Athlete goes down, your countdown goes, you do the numbers in your head. If there's an early turn, you dive, you go. There's no precious princess, I need this time to breathe up and do all this stuff. You dive on demand. You put your head down and you go, and you make sure your body is as relaxed as possible and as focused as possible on each single dive. That dive on demand is a real thing. And we teach it on our freediving courses that, the buddy that's on the surface always needs to be vigilant and aware of what's going on, prepared. That means we're lying in the water, we're breathing up, we're preparing ourselves to leave at a moment's notice. One of the athletes dropped down, I think it was a 110-meter dive, and I think I was on number 3 or number 2, so it might have been number 2 on this dive. And scuba diver goes down and he has equalization issues. And then the next one sort of jumps into place. But considering that the first safety is going down a lot earlier, you're still busy doing a breather. So that whole point of diving in demand, you've got to be ready. He looks at me, he goes, "No problem, you go, I go." And you just take a nice deep breath, be relaxed as possible, and head down. So yeah, I really love that phrase, dive in demand, and I hope it gets used a lot more, because there are quite a few. It's great to compete, and you can see the athletes, and they need their space and they need their quiet time and all the bits and pieces and all the mental preparation. And there's a lot of it involved in it. But as safety divers, we just got to suck it up, buttercup, and off we go.
Definitely.
And then your second part of the question was, what would you see the freediving, the sport and freediving as play? How would you see it grow in South Africa and Egypt?
Yes.
Going to that part of it, I would say growth is evident by people getting in the water. And how do people get in the water? They understand and they learn. And if they learn from correct and good instructors that are patient with them, that can give them the correct tools to dive and dive safely, we'll have more people in the water. Having more people in the water will create bigger communities and bigger needs for community involvement and small little WhatsApp groups and Facebook groups and get-togethers and little cliques, because there's more people in the water, because all of these things add to a community-driven focus of having more people that are in the water, having more people that are safe in the water. And that's essentially what I'd like to see for the sport, the athletes, as well as the adventure side of things. We see in Cape Town that a lot of freedivers go through and do an adventure course, or they might do an IDA 1 or an IDA 2, or a Cape Town freediving pure apnea course, or SSI, or whatever it is, or PADI. And they get the correct tools so that they can jump into the water and have an experience in the kelp forests, and they know their limits and they know how to dive with a buddy. And then so the community grows. You can see, I think I have about 8 WhatsApp groups of different dive groups in Cape Town here. And there's a multitude of and massive amount of people that are diving. It's growing daily and weekly, new people jumping in the water. And all I wish and I would like to see is that everybody getting into the water takes the time to train themselves, get an instructor that is super qualified, knows what they're doing, that leads by example, that dives themselves, that follows them down to the depths when they're doing their training, watches them, gives them immediate feedback, guides them when they're having a terrible session and they are maybe thinking things are too hectic for them. You've got to be very, very careful in how we kind of nurture these people, and to find instructors that are doing that so that the experience is so much more positive. And in having a positive experience, people can go enjoy the water in a far safer and enjoyable way. And that is my wish for where things are moving to. And whether it be Cape Town or Durban, I think Durban's had a really lovely increase in people going through the instruction recently. I think Angie's heading up a lot of the instruction there, and she's doing amazing work there. We ran some safety workshops in Durban at the beginning of the year, and Angie was the first one to put her hands up and come and attend with a bunch of her students, which was really cool to see. And she learned a lot and is definitely somebody who is passing all that really good, knowledgeable information out to the people she dives with. But yeah, the idea is to get a good instructor that knows, that walks the walk, talks the talk, that you feel comfortable with, get in the water, learn the tools, learn the techniques, do it safely, and then go out and spread the word and get more people into the water and promote the value of actually doing a freediving course, because it leads to far less incidents in the water.
Love that, guy. So stay knowledgeable and see more of us enter the water slowly but surely. And there's many people around, like you say, here in Cape Town and Durban that, have the expertise to teach us, like yourself, who has taught me, like Nelson, who has taught me. And yeah, guys, like I will say, I will add my share phase of fear in the ocean, and you guys really helped me calm that down. Like going in the ocean and playing on top, surfing, swimming on top of the ocean, that's fine. Going at the bottom was always tricky, but definitely that's now in my back pocket, and going up and down is not a problem anymore. And I want to ask you, Matt, with your experience within the sport of safety and being a freediving safety instructor, what is the biggest safety concern you would like new and advanced freedivers to be aware of?
Sure. Easy one. And I think you would speak to any freediving instructor or anybody that knows anything about freediving. The biggest safety concern is people diving alone. We train right from the beginning. The first thing you do when you start any course, whether it's an IDA course, NAUI course, SSI, PADI, whatever it is that we teach the buddy system. And this is super important because I like to use the analogy, when you jump out of an airplane and you've got a parachute on your back and the parachute fails, you've got an emergency chute. We're diving in the ocean. We don't have an emergency. Our backup is our buddy. If something happens, whether it's a shallow water blackout or a LMC, a loss of motor controls, or a Samba, and we don't have a buddy nearby who is actively watching us and who is a trained buddy, things can go pear-shaped very, very quickly. So definitely diving alone. I know there's a lot of sparrows that like to dive alone, and they probably don't like hearing this, but it's really, really important to rather buddy up, have a dive buddy with you on your dives. It can be done. I mean, during most of my spearing career, I used to dive a lot with Derek Dunning, who helped me. The two of us set up Freediving Africa here. And before we moved to Scotland, him and I were sort of absolute sort of safety buddy pairs on spearing. And that's just the way it was. It's an amazing person to have in the water as a dive buddy. He's super vigilant. He always watches out, and vice versa. This is why we do what we do. And there's no reason why sparrows can't have or do a buddy system like that. And then just general freediving as well. You're diving in the kelp, one person dives down, the other person watches them, and they're responsible for them, keeps an eye, make sure they come up, sometimes wait the 30 seconds if it's been a deep dive, and then go and do your own dive, and then swap turns. Everybody gets a turn to be safety. And that's generally one of the biggest concerns, is that just people jumping in and maybe they're not educated enough to realize the dangers of diving alone. And that would fall back as to why it is so important to do a freediving course. And then the other one I would say is, just diving out of your comfort zone, whether it be by pure pressure, or whether it be in an environment that is uncomfortable. Perhaps you're diving somewhere where there's sharks, your nervous system's taking a shot. Maybe you've had a bender overnight and you've been drinking beer in Mozambique or whatever it is. Your body's not really equipped for it. And you're just diving a little bit too deep for that day. You need to listen to your body. We all have days where sometimes our body says, no, screw you. Today's not a dive day. And you need to listen to that. So, when people don't adhere to those little signs and signals that their bodies, it's not a good day today, and they're diving out of their depths, they're diving in an uncomfortable zone, maybe diving a bit too long, too deep, could be too cold, or whatever it could be. And that could lead to quite a few instances. So just diving within your capabilities. And John McCarthy, and I know you just interviewed him recently, he has a very good analogy as well. Just, if you take the green, amber, and red, you always want to dive in the green zone. And John, I'm using your analogy because it does work beautifully. So I hope you do listen to this. But I really applaud it. You want to be diving in your green zone. You don't want to be diving red when it's uncomfortable and it's hard and something's not right, and things are going to happen. If you start seeing the orange signs, time to back off a bit. You've got to have green dives. So thank you, John, for that. Yeah, diving out of your comfort zone.
I love that. It's all about being mindful and where your body is, and just paying attention at all times, and making sure that you have someone by your side. We're almost nearing the end, hey? We're almost nearing the end. I want to ask, you've met countless amount of people, whether it be athletes, whether they be safety. And, we would just like to know at the moment, is there somebody that you think we should interview that you've met on your adventures that could give us a bit about themselves and, freediving in Africa?
I'm going to be a bit biased and I'm going to recommend a South African or two. I'm going to recommend two people, and one of them is Anthony Latimer. I hope you have an opportunity to talk to him. We like to fondly refer to him as the godfather of freediving in Cape Town, and he rightfully deserves that title. I think he is an amazing person to talk to. Not only would he come across incredibly well on your podcast with his voice that he was doing the recent competitions. Yeah, welcome to Sharm el Sheikh. He's got an incredible voiceover on the recent competition. So, yeah, and he has some really great stories and some good insight. He would definitely be on the top of the list I would definitely recommend Tamsin Signer, and she would have a lot to add. She's an incredibly intelligent person. She comes from a background of extreme sports and wingsuit instruction. She has a fascinating history. She is a phenomenal freediver. She has some great stories and is super passionate about safety as much as I am. So there would definitely be the two South Africans that I would recommend. As I say, I'm being biased, but I'm not giving you any internationals. Maybe next time I can recommend. There are definitely quite a few names I'd like to recommend. But for now, definitely Anthony Latimer. If you can, try and get an interview with Tamsin. She would have a lot to add, and I suspect that you may enjoy what she has to say.
And Tamsin is listening, then I hope they know that they're next coming, knocking on the door soon. Lastly, to wrap it all up, I'd like to ask you, given your expertise, what question should I have asked you?
You should have asked me why I chose to be a safety freediver, a depth freediver.
That is a very good question, actually.
Why? Because it's not for the money.
Because I'm thinking now, we're thinking, and it's like, who do we know that replicates, safety in freediving, is a freediving instructor? And, for me personally, I have a relationship with you. You're the one who's introduced me to the sport and brought me, and I was like, I need to interview this guy, because he's taught me everything that I know right now, with a couple of others that have also added to my growth. And I was like, this guy's well diverse in safety. He's always in between Egypt and South Africa doing safeties. But that's a very good question, because you can dive deep. And I know that your deep diving beats some people who are competing with their PBs, And so I should actually ask you. So I will ask you, why don't you do competitive freediving?
Well, like I said, it's not for the money, that's for sure. When I started this freediving, the actual path of freediving, and I say that, the freediving journey for me started in learning the skills so that I could come home to my family safely. That safety grew into the next one, and I took the next course, and that became an extended course. And I had this fascination to do what I was doing, and I just wanted to be safe. And not only safe, I wanted to be safe for other people. And next evolution was being an instructor. Now we can train students to be safe, and hopefully maybe one day something happens to me and I'm doing a deep dive and they can rescue me, or they can make an impact with their dive buddies and have a sort of a knockdown butterfly effect through my instruction or our instruction. But yeah, it's a calling. I love being in the water. I love the camaraderie with the fellow safeties. We have an amazing team in Sharm el Sheikh as well as in Dahab. The guys are super talented. They're a phenomenal bunch of guys. I'm actually going to be working with one of them that was working with me in Sharm el Sheikh, and that is Fede. We fondly call him Fede, but he's Federico Franconi. He will be joining me in Corsica in a week and a half's time at the IDA 33rd World Champions Depth Competition in Corsica in Ajaccio. I hope I pronounced that correctly. But yeah, these are amazing divers. He was one of the guys on the team, and he was the scooter safety with the other guys, and always looking up to them. I want to be what they do, and I've got an opportunity to do what they do. It's really cool, and I get an opportunity to work side by side with Fede in World Champs, as well as a couple of other divers that I've been working with. And Faku is from Uruguay. He's going to be joining us. I know him. There's Arthur, I haven't actually met. There's Sabas. There's a bunch of really, really cool people that are going to be joining me. There's 12 freedivers that have been selected by the IDA board to work World Champs. And I think the other one that I've worked with is Martin Redman, who's also a super talented instructor as well as deep diver. He actually competed in one of the recent competitions. So yeah, we all have this calling and we all have this skill, but I don't want to translate the skill into my own diving. I like really doing it for other people. I get a kick out. I get a personal fuzzy feeling, as I say. When we have an end of a day and athletes are messaging you and or you have a bit of a hug in the water and somebody's, their backstory, their life history, their struggles. It's really cool and super inspiring. We had Lucas at it wasn't this recent competition, it was the July competition. Lucas lost his sister recently, and it was quite a tough time for him. And, all of the dives, we'd be on the line and we'd be breathing up and we'd be watching him, and he would be so calm and serene on his breathe up. And he would do the dives to go fetch flowers for his sister and, fetching the tags as we reminded him. We had to give you some backstory. We did his sister's sort of a ceremony at the Blue Hole where we dropped flowers at 25 meters. And I took some pictures for him I just had a calling to take the pictures with my big rig. Got the most amazing captures. And I'll happily pass them on to you to use them, one or two. And then he went on to do the competition after that. And, we reminded him, you got to fetch some flowers for your sister. And then the emotional sort of time after the dives and when you got the white cards, and you get this real beautiful, proper bonding with these athletes. And that was just one. There's so many athletes I'd love to talk about, but Lucas really stood out for me. He's an amazing person, Colombian. And I think I'll be seeing him in Doha when I return after Corsica. So it'll be great to catch up with him again. But you have these moments, and it's a calling. It's totally a calling. I need to do it. I don't know how to say it. I need to do it. It's wonderful to be part of it. It's to be part of this community, to be part of to get a little bit of respect in the freediving world and have that beautiful camaraderie, like I keep saying, that sense of community, that we're part of something, we're doing something good, we're trying to promote safety, we're helping them, we give them a little bit of a squeeze before they go in, we give them some wise words, we give them a little bit of a hug afterwards. That's for me the special part. When they black out, we bring them up, bring them around. Some people don't like being kissed. Some really cool instances on the recent competition where I think one of the freedivers came around. I think she was doing the blow tap talk and she blew in his face, and she was holding him and blew in his face, and he came around and he looked at her and he goes, "Why you touch me? Why you touch me? White card." And he had really been like blacked out. And then later that afternoon, the next day, we spoke to him in the center that afternoon. She's like, I didn't realize that you didn't really like being kissed. You were quite shocked in your face, and he was so embarrassed. But we really had these incredible moments with these athletes. That was just a super funny one because when he came around, I could never forget his face. He was completely shocked that it was being held and had this person right up front in their face. But you really have a laugh about it afterwards. Some of them have serious incidents, and we support them and swim them back, and maybe a bit of lung squeeze, give them the support and check on them afterwards, drop them a couple of support messages, give them some words of confidence before they dive the next time. So it's really, really cool to be involved in that sphere of freediving. And you know what? It makes me happy. And that's probably the most important thing for me.
I love that, guys. All the sports making us happy, and finding things to do consistently that keeps us happy. Thank you so much, Matt, for the interview, for your knowledge, for sharing the stories. Thank you for introducing me to this world of sports. If many of you guys don't know, this is the guy that, for some reason, till this day, I don't know why, he jumped in the pool, tapped me on my back and asked me, "Do you know who I am?"
It was such a cool day seeing you face down. Come join us. I think Evan said, or Bevan said, come jump in the side. And I was responsible for managing you. And here's this man with so much talent. And fast forward, you've got a record and hopefully off to World Champs next year.
Yes.
And make some more records.
Hopefully. Definitely, guys, will see me there. I'll definitely be looking out to see Matt on the side of me being the safety. And guys, if you ever need a great safety, Matt's your guy. If you ever need somebody to introduce you and give you a little bit of an introduction to freediving, if you need to get your certification, if you want to do spearfishing and you want to experience that world again as well also, he's well multiversed in all of the fields. And as you heard, he started swimming at the age of 6 months. So if there's anyone who can teach you about water, it's this guy. So thank you so much, Matt, for being there and availing us your time today for us to interview you and get to know you.
It's an absolute pleasure, Adrian. And thank you so much for coming through. I'm glad we could have the time before I head off again. And really, I wish you all the best with your journey. And just keep it fun, keep it light. I know you've got a lot of training up ahead of you at the moment, but freedive, you just keep on enjoying it and keep it safe. Yeah.
Thank you. We'll see you guys on the next one.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Season 4, Freediving in Africa on Earthcast. And we look forward to having you again soon.